back to Gosforth Handyman and welcome to another Test Tuesday video. A little while ago, my YouTube buddy Keith Brown from Rag & Bone Brown did a very interesting test on biscuit joints to see how strong biscuit joints really are. And in his test he was doing end to end grain, kind of that sort of biscuit joint, if that makes sense, so joining two bits of wood together like that. And he actually found that the joint was weaker in MDF with a biscuit than having no biscuit at all, which I thought was really interesting. So today we're going to do a little test on end grain to face grain, which is something that I would more commonly use in the sort of work that I do. So for example, where you've got a cabinet and you might be joining one piece to another to form like an L shape, it would be very common to use biscuit joints along that edge. Another scenario is shelves in a unit that you might be building where you're going to pre-build in the shelves, in which case it's the same principle as that, but you're going to have it midway up the piece of work. I'll pop a link to Keith's original video in the description and in the info card thing above. And for this test, what I've got, I'm going to do obviously one with biscuits and one without biscuits, and we're going to see which is the strongest. I've got identical 18mm MDF. This is made by Titebond MDF. It tends to be pretty decent quality. It is branded. It's all just standard MDF, so not moisture resistant. And I'm using number 20 biscuits. I'm going to use 2 biscuits in the biscuit jointed one. These biscuits are made by UJK, which is Axminster's own brand of biscuits. If anyone wants to play along at home and do their own tests, just to kind of sanity check my results, I'll put the full specs of the test, so the sizes of the pieces of wood and everything else, I'll put that in the blog article online. Again, there's a link in the description to that. So the first job's to actually assemble the joints, which I'm going to do now. I'm going to get everything glued and clamped up. We'll leave it overnight to dry, and then we'll get it on the test rig to see what it can handle. Quickly show you around the test rig. So here's the piece at the bottom here that's being tested, and we've got the biscuited joint first that we're going to do. So we've basically got a little bracket screwed onto the edge here. I've got it screwed from the underside just in case it might rip the screw out from the top, so I'd prefer that it's screwed from the underside. Doesn't really make any difference. The main thing is that I'm consistent between this and the other tests. The chain goes all the way up through, and this is perfectly in line with the bottom. All I do is I tighten the bolt at the top here, and when I tighten that bolt it puts force through all of this, through the scales, all the way down to the hook at the bottom, and we'll see what force it registers. Let's go for it. Right, here it goes. We'll just take up the slack by hand. So we've got 11 kilos of force on the biscuit joint at the minute. Let's just go for it and see when this is going to fail. So we're sitting around 40 at the minute. No sign of it failing at the minute, really. Looks okay. As I've said before, in a real world test, like if you were doing this more scientifically, you would put a load on and you would apply it slowly over a period of time and graph it out and all that sort of thing. All I'm trying to get really is a peak load. So let's see, we'll just keep going until this fails. There we go. That was it. That's it gone. I didn't actually see it. Looked like about 42 kilos. But we'll double check afterwards. And that's completely cream crackered now. Right, let's do the one with no biscuit. Right, I've rigged up the one with no biscuit. We'll just take up the slack again by hand. Just hand tightening the bolt at the minute. Here we go. So this is no biscuit. Remember last time we got up to, I think, and I'll double check on the footage, but I think we got up to about 42 kilos with a biscuit. Let's see what we'll get up to with no biscuit in the joint. It's definitely a more catastrophic failure, obviously, because there's no bits of wood holding it in place now. It's just kind of loose and flapping about in the breeze. So 44.5 kilos for the non-biscuited and 45.3 I made it for the biscuited joint. Very, very close, but, and probably for all intents and purposes, I bet if I repeated this test more scientifically, I think the results would get even closer, to be honest. But if anyone does want to do a more scientific and more rigorous test, it would be very interesting to see the results. All I would say is that the non-biscuited joint, it's a much more catastrophic failure, obviously because there's nothing holding that joint together at all, and I can now literally just kind of, can you see that? I can just probably take that off, and it's dead. Whereas the biscuited one, although it's failed, it still has, it's not as flopping around as much. It still has a fair bit of strength to it. I can still just break it with my fingers, and you can see what's happened to the joint. And essentially, the way this has broken in MDF, by the looks of it, is that the MDF has split. So there's a split down the end grain of the MDF, which is to be expected because MDF is kind of layers of material. So we've got a split down that, which has opened up the joint. And then in terms of the actual biscuit itself, it's delaminated the MDF away from the inside of the joint. Simple as that. Again, because MDF is made in layers, it's effectively just removed the layers of MDF from inside the joint, if that makes sense. I do mainly use biscuits for alignment. Another thing to point out here though is 40 plus kilos of force on a joint like that is a colossal amount of force. You know, these are never going to go through those sort of loadings in everyday life in a cabinet or whatever, you know. Having 40 kilos of leverage force on a joint like that, you would have to be making a sustained effort to break something to come even close to those sort of loadings on joint. So, following on from this, I've got another special test coming next week. Along the lines of this, but one key difference. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Subscribe. Tune in next Tuesday for Test Tuesday and you will find out. But it should be another interesting one. In the meantime, if you're new to the channel, I do videos twice a week. Normally, Test Tuesday on a Tuesday, and then just project videos and the Gosforth Handyman tips library videos and all that sort of thing on a Saturday morning. So if you're new, welcome to the channel. Thank you for watching. See you next time.